So I'm Robin Lockhart. I am a youth worker, really, by trade. I've been working with young people for well over 20 years in various different capacities. Lots of it in London, and then probably like 10 years ago or so, started to work with young people further afield. And I got into the whole youth work field through working voluntarily with young people around music. I used to work in the music industry, and music is a thing that young people are interested in. So we ended up doing lots of voluntary work. We went into some schools and colleges and had young people come into our studio at some points as well. And I made a choice, a decision, more than a choice, to just leave all of that and get retrained. Went back to university and studied informal and community education, and haven't looked back since, really. It's exciting work, and there's so many opportunities to do it. I've done some of the work I've done has been in youth clubs, and sort of schools and colleges and prisons and pupil referral units and fields and anywhere where young people are. But most of it really is group work, one-to-one work, and probably about 15 years ago, I realized that most, if not all, the work I was doing was focused on problems. And it's still true of much work with young people. Lots of the youth work that happens through charities, social enterprises, and the only way to survive is to get a grant. And it's a bit of a merry-go-round. You never end, really. You're chasing grants, chasing grants, chasing grants. And it's quite it's not helpful, I don't find, because the grants are normally very well-intentioned, very well-meaning. They're designed to address a problem. But when you start to interact around the problem, it changes the nature of the interaction. And it was challenging for me to realize that I had to identify what was wrong with somebody before I'd met them, before we could even apply for the funding, a year in advance sometimes of meeting them, which is backwards. So you're sitting with a form, filling it in, or a form on a computer, filling it in, making up stories about people you haven't met. We're going to work with 200 young people who are addicted to something, or who are displaying a certain behavior, or who are homeless, or who are diagnosed with something. And then you have to tell the funder what your outcomes are going to be before you've met them, which is a challenge. And I did it for a long, long time. I was employed, and I worked for some charities, delivered projects on behalf of local authorities. I did have a local authority job for a little while. And then realized that in order to do the work, and I was doing the work and I was having results, I was doing a lot of work around crime, a lot of work around violence, a lot of work around some quite challenging, difficult things. The reason I realized, the reason I was having the results was that I wasn't focusing on that. So I would get the grants, I would get people referred to me who were displaying the certain behaviors, and then we'd make a film, or we'd do an art project, or we'd put on a show, or we'd do some photography, or go for a hike, or something else. And when it dawned on me all those years ago, I realized that I ought to get some training, rather than just being trained in youth work and informal education. I ought to get some training in therapies, counseling, and all of that kind of stuff, and set off down that journey. And it wasn't far down that journey when I first came across the principles, the 3 principles and Sydney Banks and that whole way of thinking. The first time I came across it, I read some of the books, the stories, the Enlightened Gardener and the story books. I forgot the name of the one about the little girl in Victorian London. And
the Liza one. Liza.
That's it. Yeah, I read them, and I'd obviously read a little bit about Sydney, and thought, yeah, so what? I read the books and thought they were great and put them to one side and carried on doing what I was doing. Got quite into hypnotherapy, NLP, little bit, all the other personal development fields, EST, some quite the hard stuff, the uncomfortable, challenging, difficult stuff, because I'm dealing with quite challenging, difficult young people most of the time. And then put all of that to one side and recognize that what worked best was dealing with people as human beings, not having any predetermined idea of who they were and what they wanted and what they needed, not even having a curriculum to follow, which was difficult. I mean, I would often turn up at a school to try and get business for myself now, because I wasn't employed. I was doing it myself through my own social enterprise. And the school would say things like, well, show me the program. And I would say, but I haven't met the kids. What are your learning outcomes going to be? I said, well, I don't know. I don't know what they want. I don't know who they are. And some schools started to get it, that if I arrive with a pre-made program and say, this is what you need to know, young people switch off. They're like, well, you don't know who I am. And some of them will literally say that. Who are you? Who are you to tell me what I need to know? How could you possibly know? You don't live my life. You don't know my family. You don't know where I live. So what I'd started to do then was just be fully in the moment. I did lots of restorative justice work when I was employed, dealing with victims and offenders and bringing them together to address a particular incident, a one-off crime, and took a lot of that with me into the work I was doing with young people around all kinds of stuff. So a lot of the work I do is in a circle, and there's a certain power in being in a circle. It's a deeply human experience. Human beings, as long as there's been human beings, have sat in circles, particularly when something's gone a bit awry. And I think that we in 20th century Western worlds, now 21st century, forgot. We forgot about that way of being. We would do things like, if somebody's behaved in a way that we don't find appropriate in a community, we'd exclude them from the community. We'd send them somewhere else, send them to a prison, or if it's in a school, send them to a different room, send them out of the school, exclude them. When really the way of dealing with the challenge is to include them. We need to bring them right into the center of the community and say, what's going on? Are you okay? Or what is happening? Like last time you smashed up his house, or you robbed from that shop. What can we do to help you? And we have a saying in my practice with my colleague Bob Singer. We talk about how young people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And building a connection, building trust, allowing a young person to see that although we're an adult, we're there and they look to us to help. Something that's the most empowering thing is then recognizing that we can't help them. Ultimately, we cannot help them. We can facilitate a process, we can provide opportunities, we can point them in the right direction, we can make suggestions, we can do all of the things, mentoring, coaching, counseling, therapy, supervision. We could do all of those things. But until a person gets to the point where they decide to change, nothing can happen, nothing can work. And they have to want to do it. And they will test you. Young people will test. They will push the boundaries. That's their role. It's their job. It's what they're designed to do. Their brain is forming. They're trying experiments. There's this notion within youth work of all young people need is a safe space. And that's the last thing young people want. They want danger and excitement and something that's a bit different and a bit difficult and something that's a challenge and something that pushes them. And sometimes it takes a while before a group will recognize that we are okay with that. I have the luxury of being able to do this for me. So I'm able to play by a slightly different set of rules. I can go into a school and I'm not a teacher. The kids don't see me every day. I can go into a prison and I'm not a member of staff in the prison. It's a different relationship, and we can break the mold. We can do things slightly differently, which I think allows us to have an impact faster and deeper, and hopefully permanently, because we deal with things on a different level to the most of the interactions that people have had. Wow, I don't know. I've been talking for a long time. Is that enough of an introduction?
Oh, I've just learned so much already in what you've said. We could finish now, because I was like, oh, really? Yeah, that's been fantastic. Really good.
Oh,
So
I was going to tell you about a project we've just finished.
Yeah.
Oh, we haven't really finished. We're coming towards the end of.
Okay.
We've been running a project in my home borough of Waltham Forest in East London. I live in Walthamstow, and it is the borough of culture. It's the first London borough of culture for 2019. There's been lots of razzmatazz and lots of great art. We've had a really lucky time. We've had big concerts and visual art and cinema and all kinds of stuff happening. We put a project together that we called East Side Story, loosely based on West Side Story, or the themes of West Side Story, which are still very relevant for young people. The territory, family, love, hate, rivalry, all of that stuff. So we put it to the local authority that what we wanted to do was to work with young people who, might come from the pupil referral unit, might come from the youth offending team, might come from a referral from their school, they might come from any source. And we wanted them to tell their stories. We pitched it as a 4-month project, whereby, 6 months end to end, but 4 months of working with young people. So what we did was we engaged with young people in the communities, at all of the places I've mentioned, and a few others, local youth centres and stuff that are still open. There's not that many still going. There's been massive cutbacks in my part of London, over 90%. Yeah. But we got a group of young people together. In fact, we got 2 groups of young people together initially, and we worked on 2 neighbouring estates in East London, in Waltham Forest, that some people think are the rival estates, that some people think are, horrible, violent, nasty places to live. And those are just stories. Some people who live there think that the people who live on the other estate are everything that they don't want, and they're just stories too. So the central sort of premise, if you like, of this whole project is that all of us get told stories growing up about who we are. Our parents tell us stories, our friends tell us stories, the teachers tell us stories, the media tells us stories, the government, the police, everybody's telling us a story about who they think we are when we're young. And we also tell ourselves stories about who we are and who we're not, who we could never dream of becoming, all the stuff we should never even contemplate doing. And none of them are true. They're just stories. And if we believe them, only when we believe them, do they start to become true. So we asked all of these young people, what would you do if you could change the story of you? What would you put in your next chapter? How would it be? And we worked with these two groups separately for 1 month, and then brought them together in February, the first weekend of February. They met at a residential in the countryside in a beautiful old manor house, and started to share what they'd done separately and who they were and what they wanted. And we said, you're going to put a stage show on in 8 weeks. And none of these young people had any experience of performing. And I'd invited my close friends who have run a drama academy in the borough, another close friend of mine from my music days who's a musician and a songwriter and a producer. And by this point, we'd also amazingly got a commission from the BBC. So the BBC were filming the whole process, which was quite scary. It's going to be a BBC Imagine documentary in July. Yeah, called East Side Story. And these young people just blew our minds. We had one girl who, at the beginning of the process, well, the first time I spoke to her, she'd been referred by some sort of a job club. She's got a job, but it's not the job she wants. She's 19 years old. And she said, well, I'm quite interested in being a camera woman and editing. I don't want to be on stage. And I said, well, I don't work for the BBC. I can't give you the job of camera person, but you'll be able to meet a cameraman and you'll be able to have a chat about editing, and maybe you should just come. And we had a long conversation, and she came along, and she struggled to even really say much more than her name. We put everybody in a circle and we opened up with, who are you? And kind of left it hanging. And there was a lot of, well, I've told you my name. Like, you know how old I am. What else do you want me to say? You know which school I go to. Like, what more do you want to know? But who are you really? Just to sort of get that, that's a big question. And she really struggled to speak. And at this residential, we did a little game. We said, we split up into groups, and we said, you've got 30 minutes to write a song. And she did. And she came back and performed this song. Every single person in that room broke down in tears. It blew us away. She is, she's a natural talent. She told us that she'd sung, but she'd never really sung in front of anyone. She said, oh, I like singing, but I don't sing in front of anyone. I can remember her saying, I don't really talk because no one wants to listen to what I've got to say. She wrote a song about what was going on in our borough. Our borough has been under the spotlight during the time we were doing this project. Youth murders were skyrocketing. The spotlight was on Waltham Forest. The Sun did a headline where they called Walthamstow Walthamstow. They said it was the most dangerous place in Europe. There is some youth violence in the borough that I live in. There's some youth violence everywhere. And this girl sang about it. It just broke us all. And at the end of the song, everybody mobbed her. Like there was a big rugby scrum. The other kids just jumped on her. And I spoke to her the other day. So we did the show. We did 2 sellout shows, 2 standing ovations. We had Hollywood actors come to visit them. We had TV producers, music producers, Mercury Music Prize winners, people from EastEnders, all of this. They had all of these people coming to visit them. And lots of them said, which drama school are they from? And how long have you been singing? And people said to me, did you select them because of their skills? But because they were actors. Like, this is the first time they've ever acted. So I spoke to her yesterday, and said to her, what was the biggest thing for you from this project? And what she said was really simple, but quite profound. And for her, well, I'll tell you what she said. She said, I have never felt comfortable in any group before in my life. And now I do. And I said, it's lovely that you feel comfortable in this group. And she went, no, not just this group. I feel comfortable in groups now. That is all it takes. If you can be comfortable in who you are, and other people are there too, you can make progress. You can write your new story. You can change things. You can make progress. Which is interesting because we base a lot of our practice, in me and my team, on allowing people and promoting opportunities for people to be uncomfortable, to notice what they do, and to allow for that snap for things to change and to go, oh, if you can work out what you do when you're uncomfortable, you provide scope for growth. And for us, she spoke about anxiety a lot in the group. And we had conversations which were, I suppose, quite esoteric and quite strange. But they've helped her somehow. She's found something in them that has enabled her to find what she'd been looking for. She's found some sort of peace within. She's found out who she is. She's realized that she has value and worth and talents and things that she hadn't really discovered. Or she knew she could sing, but she didn't place any value on it. She just discounted it. And for me, that's all that youth work is about. It's about providing a space that can be whatever it needs to be, that the young people have to make it that. Like, as adults, we can't be the ones who do it. Like there are places where people are now building £6 million youth clubs, which is wonderful in one sense, but they're deciding what young people want, or they get a panel of 10 young people and they decide, well, we want a climbing wall. And then they go to university and then another 10 young people turn up and they go, why is there a climbing wall here? I don't want to do that. No, you just need all you need is a room. They don't need entertaining. They don't need to be told how to live. They don't need to be even advised. I think there's a misunderstanding about how or where change happens and how you deal with challenges. So people will often accuse me and my colleagues of providing motivational speeches or therapy or counseling. The reason why we can go into a room of young people and have an impact is because we know that the young people have the answer. But we know that they are the only place the answer can come from. And we don't have to say that. They feel it. When they feel it, because we have no doubt about it, there is no scope for, that's just the truth. There is no scope for error. They have the answer. Our role is to ask the right questions, provide the right scenario to allow them to discover it. And if we try to present it to them on a plate, they go, nah. We had another young man in this group who, I spoke to him yesterday, did a one-to-one with him. And the same question, what was the biggest thing for you out of this project? And he said, I've realized that the poems I've been writing since I was a kid, and this guy's 23, he's been writing them since he was a little kid. I've realized that I can share them. So he's been going to open mics and doing stand-up performance poetry. He was homeless. He had been written off by various people. He's a wonderful guy. He's so talented. And he's suddenly realized that he might not change the world with his poetry, but he can read it. He can perform it and people will listen. And he has something to say. So it was an exciting project. And I don't quite know how we did it, except that we all just trusted the process. Us, the young people, the drama coaches, the musicians, the BBC to a certain extent, we all just went with it. We invented a Greek god. The Greek god of collaboration is called you, me, us. And we kept referring to Ubius. Ubius is the god that we are praying to. It's you, it's me, and it's us. And none of this could work without Ubius. It was fun.
Yeah,
it was fun.
It sounds like it. I'd like to have been in it myself. It sounds.
You could be in chapter 2, Anne.
Yeah, sounds really good. And wow, I can't wait to see it either. It's on in July, did you say?
It's good. I think it's the 23rd of July, but I'm not 100% sure. It's
Right.
on BBC Imagine.
Okay.
Which is like the BBC's art strand.
Oh, okay.
It's like Panorama, but for the arts. Yeah.
Well, it's a shame it's not going out even wider than that, but maybe it will. Maybe it will.
I think it's quite a big deal, Imagine.
Is it?
It's been going a long time.
I don't watch television.
I don't very much. I shouldn't have said that live on now the BBC will edit me out.
No, we will do though. I'm definitely going to watch this.
Brilliant. Well, I'll let you know as soon as I know. We can post it up, and I hope people will watch it. And I think it's about the young people. It's not about me. It's not about the team that were there. It's going to be following them, and it will be telling their story and showing. I don't suppose the whole stage show will be in it, but bits of the stage show will be in it. It was phenomenal, and that's just a framework to throw around some learning. It could have been a film, it could have been a music album, it could have been a photography exhibition. It doesn't really matter what the thing is. It's the
No.
process. It's the process that matters.
Yeah. Yes, I'd have loved. I mean, I can just imagine when I was that age that I would have loved doing something like that. That would be fantastic.
It took them a while to believe us.
Yeah.
Like we would sit at the beginning and they go, can I go to the toilet? And we'd be going, this is your project. Why are you asking me? Like, what? This isn't school. Like, I don't want you to sit there and hurt yourself. Go to the toilet if you need to go to the toilet, and come back with a new idea.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah, young people are just people.
Yeah.
The age and maturity are not linked, and expertise, talent, anything that we're looking for, that a young person might be searching for, they've got it. They've got it. And our job, my job, is to point them back towards that and say, you've been looking for it somewhere else. No, we had some challenging times. We had some situations where, and you always will working with young people, particularly where they've been referred because of a problem or a challenge or a difficulty. Even if they've committed some act of extreme violence, that's not who they are. It's something they've done. And explaining to somebody what an emotion is, where it comes from, how they arise, what they're for, what they mean, how they can help, just in a conversation. That's all. That's the only. It's not magic. It's not science. It's an art. We call it the art of perception. If you can help somebody to see something slightly differently, their whole world changes. And we can only be part of that process. They have to do the shift and go, oh, I didn't see it like that before. And then everything just drops into place. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful to see that, kids that have been, we had a really deep conversation about how one boy was in trouble for fighting, and he said, well, he made me angry. And we've said, really? Are you sure? Yeah, he knows how to do it and he does it every time. So I knocked him out and I got kicked out of school. Okay. Well, let's talk about that. Because what else could he make you do? Could he make you happy? Could he make you dance? Can he make you sing? And he was like, no. But you said he made you angry. He can't make you angry either, surely. And then we got to the point where he recognized that somebody doing something and you getting angry is very different to somebody doing something so you got angry. And we can make the mistake many people do of spending our whole life saying it's that other thing. It's the weather, it's the police, it's the government, it's my neighbors, it's my mum, it's my dad, it's that thing that happened when I was 6. All that is the reason why I'm messing my life up. Or we can say, hang on, there's a different way of looking at this. And everything that I've thought I wanted, I've already got. And I just need to provide an opportunity to have some space and some silence. During that project, when we took them to the countryside, we went for a night hike in the forests, in the Chilterns, in the snow. These kids thought we were crazy until we stopped and we got in a circle and I said, listen to this. And I didn't say anything. And one boy just went, whoa, I've never heard that. There's no sirens. I can't hear any buses. Whoa. And it moved him. And then we went back into the building and we sat down in a circle again and spoke about what silence is and how everything comes from silence. Everything. And when things are feeling like they're getting on top of you, come back to this moment in your head, in your thoughts. Remember this silence and remember how it felt. Because although you were there, we were standing in the snow in a circle, you've now got that in your mind locked away. And you can bring that with you wherever you go. And the songs that they wrote for this performance, there were 5 songs I think in the show, were all about silence and changing the me to we, and how trust is fundamental, being alone in a room full of strangers, being the quiet kid, being the one that nobody listens to, but then suddenly having a voice. I will remember this project for a long, long time. And it's just one project, and it's just 4 months. Some people call this a job. I don't know. I don't know. It's a privilege. It's a beautiful thing to be able to do for a living. I love doing it, and it's always different. I never quite know what's going to happen, but none of us really do we?
No. That's the fun, isn't it? That's the fun of it. It's when you think you've got to plan everything. That's no fun at all.
Yeah.
So you've got a YouTube channel too now, haven't you? With the I Love Youth Work.
I Love Youth Work is up there, which is again, I'm a bit of a one-trick pony really. I have conversations. So me and Bob have conversations with youth workers, and they talk about their youth work.
Okay.
And it's a lovely thing. I mean, it's not a money-making thing. It's not for any purpose other than for sharing practice. And there's some amazing work out there. There really, really is. And it's been. But Bob had that channel probably about 5 years before I'd met him, and I met him about 5 years ago. I think he'd been doing it for a while, and then he stopped it, and we spoke about relaunching it at the same time that we were invited through the Commonwealth. I got an award from the Commonwealth in 2016 for youth work, and then I'm now an ambassador for youth work for them. I don't know what that means really. it means I talk about youth work, which is all I ever do. And we were invited to they had a conference in Malta, which was the Commonwealth and the European Council together, which we worked out on the second day. So they said, why don't you just restart it now and come and cover the conference? So we did, which was good because we've been talking about restarting it for a little while. We kept saying, we'll do it in January, and we'll do it in February. Anyway, we realized on the second day, I think we had more than half of the world's nations represented.
Wow. And
it was just amazing to talk about things from, again, all these different perspectives. So there was people from, and these terms, I don't know, I don't really understand these terms, the West and the North and the South. They sound simple, but Australia is the West, and Europe is the West, and America is the West. And that confuses me. So I don't know how that comes across to young people, but there was lots of academics talking about how we need to standardize youth work, we need to professionalize youth work, we should have the same approach across the globe. And I can understand that there's a need for some of that. It's nice to have some baseline stuff that you can build on. We need to know about safeguarding, we need to know, all the stuff that people who are going to work with young people need to know. But there's also a huge value in allowing for not just the geographic differences, but the differences that different practitioners have, different approaches, because young people are all different. Not all of us. I'm different to you. Everybody's different. And if there's something in standardizing things that, I might be wrong about this, but to me, it seems to suggest that we're settling. If we make it standard, that it's just going to be this. Whereas if it's not standard and we provide the best every time, it can be that and that and this and that and all of these things. Whereas we're bringing it all to become a bit kind of monotone, perhaps.
It sounds a bit like having the curriculum that you were talking about before.
Yeah. How can, I don't know, a youth worker working in a village in Bangladesh have the same approach as somebody working in Vancouver? Or there might be similarities, and there might be crossovers, and there might be learning that they could share. But part of the impact of powerful, meaningful, potentially transformational conversations with young people, often around problems, is flexibility. Being able to respond in that moment, rather than having maybe a pre-designed. That could be the standard thing. That you'll always be flexible.
That's what I was thinking. Yes,
Yeah, rigidly
that's
flexible.
what I was
You
going to say.
must be flexible. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, and it's nice to have these opportunities to talk about them, because about all these different things, because it's only by doing those conversations and having these conversations that we learn from each other.
Hmm.
And whenever I do any of those sorts of things, those conferences, it's just phenomenal the way that people have different views, not just based on what religion they are, or what ethnicity they are, or which country they're from, just based on who they might be. And
Yeah.
they just come up with things, and you have a conversation that goes beyond those, whether you're male and female, or black and white, or Christian or Muslim. It goes underneath all of that,
Mm.
and gets to the heart of the matter, that human beings can talk to human beings on a different level. It is something about that. It's leaving the head, leaving the mind,
Mm.
and coming down into the heart. We've made some mistakes. I personally have made some mistakes, but I think we in the West have made some mistakes about how we see things. And I'm using the phrase "the West" after having said I don't understand it, but you know what I mean. Us white folk have made some big errors in the way we've put things together, and tried to dominate. Even when it comes to things like Sydney Banks and the three principles, he articulated something that is true of all people,
Mm.
and has always been true of all people. But he articulated it in a Western or European 20th century way
Hmm.
that resonated with lots of 20th century culture people. But it was true before Sydney Banks was born.
Oh, totally.
And when I've had the pleasure of meeting people from other societies, and talk to them about these kind of things, about consciousness and thought, and the mind and all of that stuff, they sort of go, yeah, we know.
Mm.
Well, have you lot just discovered this? Like, no. Yeah, we know that. And it's, but when we allow it to all fade away, when we allow the real us to come through, none of those things exist. None of those differences exist. Countries are not real.
Mm-mm.
Countries are constructs that we've made up. And yet these divisions seem to cause people to go off down a path that is fantasy. I've had stuff in my career that I just can't get my head around. Still, like, I've had people say to me, "You can't work with young black boys." Oh, sorry, what do you mean? Well, they won't relate to you.
Okay.
Well, you've decided that. That's insulting to young black boys. Well, who are you to decide who they can relate to?
Mm.
It doesn't make any sense to me. Just before you pressed record, and my nephew Max was here.
Mm.
So Max is 7. I should have brought him in as a special guest, shouldn't
Yeah.
I? We were talking about that. Max is 7 years old. He is a beautiful human being, and he's very articulate, very intelligent, very funny. Everything that all 7-year-olds are, really, when they're allowed to be. When he was about 3, or maybe 3.5, I was out for a walk with him in Epping Forest, near where we live. And a little old lady was out with her dog and got chatting to Max. And I've never forgotten this. She said to me, "He's really cute. Is he mixed race?"
Uh-huh.
And Max looked her full in the face and went, "I'm 100% human."
Oh, that's so good.
Which is it's the essence
so
of it all.
Good.
It's perfect. It's perfect. And yes, he's a slightly different color to me, and his dad's even darker than he is, and but he's a human being.
Mm.
And he's aware of differences, and he loves them. And I do too.
Mm.
I'm interested in how people function, and how people think, and how people live. And there's nothing different about us apart from things that excite me. I'm interested in trying different food, and listening to different music, and hearing different stories. and that richness, that kind of, I don't know what it is. Curiosity is childlike, and I think that lots of adults pretend it's gone. They pretend they don't have it anymore. They've held it down somehow, and that must be such hard work. I don't want to do that.
I wouldn't know how.
No, no. Yeah. What
Yeah.
else should we talk about?
Well, I'm not. I think that's well. I'm just still in the feeling of your project. It just sounds so amazing, so amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and it's, as I said, it's a privilege to be able to think that, you know, we can dream something up and take it from an idea and then talk about it and make it real.
So where did that idea come from?
I can't really remember. I've been talking about doing something called East Side Story for about 2 years, and we were
Okay.
going to do it. We were going to do it in a different borough, and then Waltham Forest became this borough of culture, so we spoke to them about it. I mean, that's the process that everything materializes from, isn't it? You have an idea, you have a thought, you share it with somebody, and it's become spoken, and then that's how you take a step towards making it real. And it works in both directions, unfortunately. So when people have an idea that's a negative idea, and then they speak about it or are spoken to about it or enter into a dialogue about depression or guilt or shame or whatever it might be, they make it real if they believe it. But none of it's real. It's just a thought that they spoke about.
Yes, it's different. It's a slightly different, but there's a no, not slightly different. A very different feel about it when it's that sort of inspiration, than when it's you know, I want to kill somebody sort of inspiration. You know what I mean? That's not really so much. That is, yeah. That's what I find anyway.
No, I think you're right, but I think that I don't know how many emotions there are. I don't know how many words for emotions there are, but we seem to very quickly be able to categorize them as people. We do. I've just done it. Speak about positive and negative emotions, and even that's a story. They're just made up. They are thought, and whether they're good or bad, whether they're happy, sad, indifferent, is simply a perception that we have, and this it's an illusion, isn't it? This illusion that we live in, whereby we attribute how we feel to the outside world, or even when we have an emotion, we think it's telling us something about the outside world in that moment, or us in that moment. It's just telling us that it's a fleeting thing.
What I think is so funny is I was talking to someone yesterday about how we spend all of our time thinking, oh, I shouldn't be feeling that, and I shouldn't be feeling that, and that's not a nice feeling to feel. And that's, you know, we've been taught that these are not nice feelings to have, and they're bad feelings, and we shouldn't have them. And then we go and pay to go to the cinema to have those feelings. You know, it's like we go to
be
the
horrified
cinema,
and to be frightened and
to be scared and to be made angry and to be made to laugh and to be made to feel sad and to cry, and we pay to do that, and then the rest of the time in so-called real life we're trying not to have those feelings. That doesn't make any sense to me.
And then they are, I mean, it's how we know we're alive, isn't it? Feeling. It's how we know we're still functioning, but other than that, it oughtn't to have that much of an influence. But we've built a whole society around it. Nobody pays money to talk to somebody about how wonderful they feel.
No.
But what makes only bad feelings valuable? Like, well, I'll pay money to talk about how sad I am, but I won't pay money to talk about how happy I am.
Mm.
So it's a bizarre thing. It's a bizarre thing. And we create the meaning, the perception of them. And we know, I mean, we know how powerful placebo effect is. You know, proper scientists have measured all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And the reverse is also true. That if you focus on negative stuff, and if you're going to get ill. The link between the mind, the body, or the physical, or the non-physical. I mean, to even describe it as a link is a nonsense. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's all one thing. There's a beautiful video I saw the other day. Dr. Bruce Lipton. Have you seen him?
Mm.
Did you see that video about the atoms and the molecules and the voltage? It's beautiful. And what I love about the time we're in now is that we are able to draw upon science and say to people, look at that. If you're a scientist and we've been talking this woo-woo, airy-fairy stuff for a while now, and you haven't believed us, now look at that.
Mm.
Because it's all coming to pass that, you know, what mystics and faiths and all those esoteric teachings for forever have been about is true. That we are the thing that we're looking for. We are the universe experiencing itself. We are one. It's provable now. And that's, I mean, once that becomes mainstream, and it seems to be accelerating, that understanding is going to change how we function as a whole society globally. It's happening. It's happening. I mean, a lot of people at the moment are very negative, and you know, I fall into that trap too sometimes, and look at the news and think, oh my God, what future have we got? But I work with our future all the time. They're here now. They're alive. They're attending projects. They're out there marching. Young people are amazing, and they see the world in a different way. Not all of them see it differently, but there's a growing mass of young people who are not prepared to put up with some of the nonsense that we've allowed.
Yeah, really that's a good thing. Good thing too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I'm a father. I've got two boys, 17 and 21, and I'm excited about what they're going to do, how they're going to impact the world.
Mm.
I think they're going to have a good time.
So, what are you up to? What are you up to now, Robin?
We're about to move. Me and my organisations are moving into a new space, but it's actually a very old space. We're moving into a Victorian building in Whitechapel, which will be lovely, in July. And we're going to do lots more work with young people. The building's connected to George Williams, which is a youth work college, a university, part of the YMCA. And we're going to be working out the back, doing all kinds of different projects with young people from, well, wherever, all over the place, hopefully. We're involved now in I think we've got 3 European projects that are up and running. Not all of them are ours. A couple of them are ours. We're training people in 7 or 8 countries about how to engage with refugees and how to work with refugees. There's another project where we've got younger people training older people how to use computers to access stuff that they might not have accessed. All good, healthy stuff. What's the other one? The other one is about conflict management and resolution. And that will be in June, we're going to Spain to go and work with them. So all exciting stuff. And I think the East Side Story will continue somehow. There's been a lot of talk amongst the young people about taking it from the stage onto film.
Wow.
which I would be really keen to do. And a really easy starting point might be just to do the music videos. So we might do that. There's also, I mean, we've got some connections who are already in film and media that are quite keen to support some young people to do something exciting. And I think that, yeah, film is an amazing tool. It's a powerful thing. I mean, even this is an amazing, powerful thing. And if a picture is, what's the saying? A picture tells 1,000 words. I mean, and then a film must be millions.
Yeah.
It's a really, really powerful way of communicating. And yeah, that's where we're thinking of heading, is doing more work with young people around their stories, around their changing the narrative, and around providing opportunities for them to express that in some sort of creative way.
Amazing. Wonderful stuff.
That's what we're hoping to do.
Yeah,
no,
so
it's
I
exciting.
think, I think that's probably probably enough for people for I can't believe you're doing so much.
No, it's
So-
crazy, but it's lovely.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds really good fun.
Yeah.
So
I don't
if
do it all
people,
myself. But
no, but what you are doing sounds really good and really enjoyable.
thank you. Well, thank you
And
for
I have learned a lot from what you've said, a lot, I have to say. Yeah. So,
wow.
and I'll put some links. Your links are on the website already, on our
Brilliant.
website at thesecretofeverything.com.
Yeah.
And so people can get in touch with you if they would like to ask more questions. And there
Brilliant.
will probably be more questions from people who are watching the replay as well. So
Yeah, and I think that in terms of working with young people, that there's a lot of people who are professional coaches who have expressed an interest in working with young people. I think that the news recently around how terrible life is for young people has prompted people to go, well, let me do something.
yeah,
And I'm always up for questions and answers and seeing what possibilities exist. I think it is important that if somebody to go from being a corporate coach to being a youth coach, is that there are things that they ought to know before they go into that arena. And if there's anything I can do to help with any of that, I'm always up for it.
brilliant. Perfect.
Thank
Lovely.
you.
Thank you very
Lovely.
much. See
And
you
now you're going
again.
to just drive off into the distance, are you?
Yeah, that's it. I'm just going to drive.
Thank you, Anne. And I'll talk to
All
you
right.
again soon.
Yeah. See you later. Bye then, Robin.